Every developer I know is quietly asking the same question right now. With AI generating full stack code bases in a matter of seconds, does the gap between junior and senior engineers still exist? It is a fair question, but the gap hasn't closed, it has just moved. Here's what's actually happening. If you ask an AI agent to build a full stack application today, it will happily write 2,000 lines of custom session management, bespoke JWT logic, and complex database triggers from scratch. A junior developer looks at that and thinks it's a superpower. A senior engineer knows it's a maintenance nightmare. Just because an AI can build custom infrastructure doesn't mean it should. When you let AI reinvent the wheel, you end up maintaining a massive, undocumented security system that you didn't even write. In 2026, the job of a senior engineer is no longer writing syntax. It's orchestrating systems. We don't let AI hallucinate infrastructure, we give it the tools to provision industry standards. And that, my friend, is the difference between a junior and a senior engineer building today. To show you exactly what that looks like, we are going to build this. This is Splitter AI, a full stack Splitwise clone. It features complex group permissions, secure user management, and an AI-powered graph algorithm that automatically simplifies and minimizes shared debts between friends. It also has AI-powered features so you don't have to manually enter every single expense, but let AI do the magic. An application like this used to take a team of developers a month to architect. I built it on my own in less than a day. And by the end of this video, you will have it too. And don't worry, even though we are dealing with heavy math and advanced architecture, if you understand basic JavaScript and React, you will be able to follow this exact workflow step by step. And if you don't know React, then take a look at the link in the description below for a basic React course and get back to this video. That course is completely free. If you don't know React, then you can take a look at the link in the description below for a free basic React course I'm offering completely for free. But the app isn't actually why you're here. You're here for this. A fully agentic system. I have developed a custom AI architecture powered by specific markdown skills that you drop right into your editor. Before our AI writes a single component, we feed it a directory containing 4 key files: project overview, architecture, build plan, and crucially database schema. This schema is the load-bearing foundation that AI will use to build up Prisma models and calculate a complex graph map. We also give it custom agent skills. So instead of letting AI run wild, we command it using strict chat commands outlined in our agents.md file. Skills like architect math to plan logic, auth setup to configure environments, and webhook sync to tunnel our data. Don't worry if all of this feels complex because I'm going to walk you through this step by step. But it goes deeper than chat. We also arm it with automated editor skills like our Next.js review skill, which forces the AI to go through a 29-point custom checklist that I have created to catch app order mistakes before every commit, and a strict landing page design spec to keep our UI pixel perfect. This is how senior engineers build. We design solid systems and we orchestrate the AI to execute perfectly within those boundaries. But an agentic system only works if you use tools the agent can actually control natively. The moment you have to stop your AI, open a browser, click through dashboards, and manually copy API keys, you break the entire workflow. This is why we are strictly using agent native tooling today. We are going to use a plugin system to use the Clerk CLI to let the agent securely provision our authentication and tunnel webhooks directly from our terminal. And for our database, we are using Prisma, which is the ultimate agent native database because they actually ship their own official AI skills pack. By giving our agent Prisma's 9 vendor published skills, it has deep, up-to-date knowledge of the Prisma CLI and the client API, allowing it to design schemas and push updates completely on its own without us ever leaving the editor. And here's the complete stack for today. Next.js and React for the framework, and yes, the latest versions. Tailwind and Shaxian UI for the UI components, Prisma for our database, and Anthropic SDK paired with Zod perfectly for structured AI intelligence, and Clerk powering the entire user infrastructure. By the end of this video, you just won't have Splitter AI, you will have a repeatable systems for building anything. I have completely open sourced this workflow. The custom context rules, the blueprint files, our editor skills, and the link to install the Clerk CLI are all down in the description below. So make sure to download the cheat sheet which has links to all of these so you could follow along. You can grab them for free right now and use them on every single project you build from today onwards. So let's get everything installed and let's go build. If you want to learn how to build this workflow from the ground up, how to architect these systems yourself, and the exact patterns that led me to create these skills in the first place, I'm putting together a complete AI engineering course. I'll leave the waitlist link in the description so you can secure your spot and get notified as soon as it drops. I will be giving out a lot of free goodies, so make sure you add yourself to the waitlist so you don't miss out. So to get started, we are going to basically be using Next.js as our framework, as I mentioned in the video. Now Next.js is built on top of React. Let's just head over to the installation section and let's get started. And you can use npm, yarn, bun, whatever you like. I'm just going to stick to npm. Let's copy this command and this will set up our application. But let's just copy just this part so it can give us a bunch of prompts that we could select. So now let's go here, paste it. This will create a Create Next tab for us. Create Next tab is essentially a CLI tool that will bootstrap our application. So here, let's just call this Splitter AI. And let's just go ahead with the recommended defaults, which is TypeScript, ESLint, no React compiler, Tailwind CSS, no source directory, app router, and agents.md file, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's just go ahead and set it up. Now it's going to install the dependencies as well as the dev dependencies for us. Alright, so now let's just change our directory. Let's open this up in a editor of choice. Now I'm going to be using Cursor. So let's just open it up in Cursor. And if I just do cursor dot, then this will just open it up in Cursor for me. Alright, so now our application is ready to go. Let's just make this bigger. And now let's just run npm run dev, which will start our development server. Now once we do, let's copy this, go here and paste it. And voila, our Next.js app is ready to go. Now this is that application. And this is the app folder. That means we are going to use Next.js app router. We have a bunch of files here, such as the page.tsx file, which is the index file. The layout file wraps your entire application, so it contains HTML and body elements. It has the public folder, which has all the public assets. But where I want you to focus on right now is, in fact, the agents.md file and claude.md file. Now, if you take a look, claude.md file, it points to at agents.md. Now, I will be focusing on using Claude Code, but feel free to use any other agents, there's Cursor or Codex or whatever you like. Now, with Claude.md file, it points to agents.md file. This specific file gives the agents commands for what exactly it needs to do. Now, like it said, this version has breaking changes, APIs, conventions, whatever. And read the relevant guide in node modules /next/dist/docs. And this is also one of the cool features about Next.js. Now its docs are essentially shipped as part of node modules itself. So the AI agents can read directly before they can start writing any code. We are also going to set up our own Next.js rules later on too. This agents.md file will be responsible for giving instructions to our agent for exactly what it needs to do. Now, another thing I want you to do is go to the extensions and go to Claude Code for VS Code. And this is the extension that we want if you want to interact with Claude Code directly in your editor. As you can see, this is the tab that you are going to see here for Claude Code. Now, I'm also going to make sure to update my Claude Code to the latest version. But this is the extension I'll be using to basically give prompts to Claude Code inside my editor directly versus using the terminal. Now, if you're more comfortable using the terminal, that's completely okay. However, I'm just going to stick to using Claude Code in VS Code, or which is basically Cursor. Now, If you want to use Claude Code directly in the terminal, then you could simply just run Claude, and whatever we are doing, you can also type the prompts here. And I will show you my workflow so you'll have a good understanding for how to do this the right way. Now, I have also included a splitter starter repo as part of the cheat sheet in the description below. So make sure you check that out, because that is a starter repo that will have some context folders and some files that will really help you get started with it. And this is how the starter repo looks like. So before let the agent write a single line of code, I want to show you the most important folder in this repo, and it has no code in it. It essentially has markdown files. So for instance, if we go to the context folder, we have these 4 files. And the way to think about this is that this is the difference between vibe coding and actually engineering with an agent. When you vibe code, all the knowledge about your application lives in the chat, and the chat gets summarized, it gets really long, or you open a new session and it's gone. The agent rebuilds its understanding from scratch every single time. You waste a lot of tokens, your context gets huge and massive, slightly different every single time. So .context moves that knowledge out of the chat and into the repo where it's versioned, reviewable, and permanent. So let's go over this one by one. But first, let's just copy this folder and head over to our Splitter AI app and paste it. This is what we essentially need, as you can see right here. So the first file is project overview. File 1 is essentially what we are building. It is Splitter AI, a splitwise clone. Every page, every user flow is in fact written down. When I ask for the group page later, the agent already knows what's on it. So if we take a look at this file, we'll get back to it in a second. But let me give you an overview of all the files, other files first. The second file is the architecture file. It's the stack. And my favorite section anywhere in this repo, invariants. These are the rules that agent must never break no matter what I prompt. So for example, money is integer cents. This is what I've defined, never floats. Splits must sum exactly to the expense total. The server validates, the client rounding is never trusted. The server is the one that's responsible for it. When it comes to identity, it must always be clerk. Only, never trust a user ID from the client. Every server action, because this is one of the most common mistake that every single developer makes inside of Next.js. So if we take a look at server action here, it should start with const user ID await, because otherwise it's not going to be secure. So every server action checks authentication first. I wrote these once, and now every single feature that the agent builds gets checked against them, including features I haven't thought of yet. There's also a gotcha section, for instance, conventions and gotchas at the bottom. And here's the fun part. The agent adds to it when we hit something weird and the repo learns. For example, auth is async in Next.js 15 plus. Always add auth, for example, like we talked about. After upgrading Next, stop the dev server and delete .next folder, because next folder essentially gets created and it is cached, and we don't want any stale data there, and which could lead to crashes and so on. So it's going to stop the dev server and delete it. We also have for clerk, which we'll talk about in a bit, how clerk doctor is a very useful command that essentially helps us inspect clerk. And if anything is wrong with clerk, we can just run clerk doctor. We want this to be all green, authenticated, linked, and real keys in n.local file. Or we could just use clerk and pull, which again we will talk about later, because clerk CLI is very handy. We are also using themes from Tweakcn, which will rewire the theme's font name to next font variables in the theme inline block. Again, these are things we will take a look at later, but these are some of the rules, conventions, and gotchas that are very, very important. So we have the architecture here, we have invariants here, we have conventions and gotchas here, and these are extremely important in the architecture. File number 3 is database schema. Now, this is the data model. It's written before any Prisma existed, so the schema was a decision, not an accident. So for example, money is always integer cents, user.id is always the clerk ID. Then we have the user table, we have the group table, group member, expense, expense split, and settlement. So all of this is well thought out. So you just have to write all of this as part of the database schema to be able to understand what the agent is going to do. So we are thinking of all of these things ahead. So we don't have to worry about the decisions later on for agents to make mistakes and so on too. And this is the difference between a senior engineer and a junior engineer. Lastly, the file is build plan. Now this specific file is in fact the build plan. One phase, one commit, checkboxes. The agent always knows exactly what's next and what's already done even in a brand new session. For example, this is how we are going to build it. Now, in this specific file, it's one phase, one commit, or a tight commit series. Check the items off as they land. This is what keeps a multi-week agent project from turning into soup or spaghetti code, because the agent always exactly knows what's next and what's already done, even in a brand new session. For example, this is the agent native infrastructure. You're provisioning Clerk app plus keys with the Clerk CLI. We'll talk about that in a bit. What is a UI foundation? First, we are going to use mock data, and then we are going to replace it with real data. Prisma schema needs to be as per the database schema. Then we have debt simplification, because Splitwise allow us to simplify our debt. So there are some examples and requirements here. We have webhook user saying. That means anytime there is a user that's being added inside of Clerk, then exactly how the webhook will verify it. Flexible splits, multi-currency, AI quick add, and so on. So there's a lot here. This is essentially a build plan, so you could literally trust it and follow it step by step. And then these are some stretch goals as well if you want for you to take this application further. So that's the deal. Now, agents.md file essentially tells the agent to read this specific folder before writing any code. So now let's head over to the starter repo, go to the agents.md file. Let's copy the starter repo stuff and go to agents.md file and paste it. Now this is what the agents.md file will has. We are not changing this initial part, but what we are adding is the agentic workflow and boundaries. We are telling our agent that, hey, you are an expert Next.js 16 engineer, senior engineer, the architect. Before writing any code, read every file in the context folder to understand the product, stack rules, database schema. Follow the build plan one phase per commit. Infrastructure rules are we do not write any custom JWT or session or password hashing logic. We do not need to copy API keys out of dashboards by hand. All auth infrastructure is in fact provisioned with Clerk CLI, which already has agentic rules and workflows built in, so we don't need to worry about it. On top of that, we also have some custom skills that I will walk you through as well. But agents.md file tells the agent to read this folder before writing any code. The docs hold the what and the why. The prompts just steer. If you take one thing from this specific video, it's this specific folder. You can build, which is a context folder. You can build it for any project in 20 minutes and it pays for itself by the second session. It is very, very handy. And also if you work in a team, I would say work on the markdown files first, get a solid architecture handy, and then add additional features or whatever later on. So to summarize, context folder is what we are building. This file agents.md is how we work together. If context is the spec, this is the employment contract. So first, a small thing that matters that I would like to highlight, and we did talk about a little bit earlier, which is the claude.md file. Now I use Claude code, reads claude.md file, but look what's in mine, agents.md. One line. It just imports agents.md, and that's because agents.md is an open standard. Codex reads it, Cursor reads it, Claude reads it. Basically, every coding agent reads it. So you write your rules once in this neutral file, and every tool your viewers use get the same instructions. So if you're on Codex, this repo already works for you. If you have defined agents.md file, it will just work for you. And the first thing in this file, and it's a warning to the agent that this is not the Next.js. Next.js 16 changed things. There is no middleware.ts anymore. It's proxy.ts. And the model's training data doesn't know that. So this block tells the agent that before you write any specific code, read the docs that ship inside node modules. Next.js 16 literally renders its own documentation into this specific package. The agent gets docs for the exact version installed. No doc lookup service, no stale blog post, or no hallucinated APIs, because docs are now shipped as part of the node modules folder. Now, This is the part, the agentic workflow and boundaries is very interesting. It's this one sentence sets up the entire relationship. The agent is the senior engineer. I am the architect. It changes behaviors. The agent proposes, but I still have to approve, and that's the behavior of a senior engineer. Agent is there to help you, guide you, but you are the architect after all. It reads .context for coding, and it follows the phase order that I have, and I make the calls and it does the work. Then we have infrastructure rules. Then 3 rules marked critical, for example, which are the critical rules here, and they're all about authentication. We don't write custom JOT or session logic, password hashing logic. We do not copy API keys. All auth infrastructure comes from the clerk CLI, and here's why this section exists. An agent left alone will happily hand roll authentication for you. It loves writing crypto code, and that's exactly the code you never want to write. You never want an AI writing unsupervised. These 3 lines will make sure that it doesn't happen. These 3 lines take that option off the table permanently. The last section is my favorite section, which is the custom skills. Commands I invented, they're not features of Plot code. They're just markdown that says, when I type this, do exactly these steps. So first step is clerk setup. It provisions the whole auth layer. The clerk app, keys, middle sign-in pages, and it starts by telling me what to run in my terminal because CLI needs my browser to log in. Then you have architect math. It's the fun one. It forces my agent into plan mode and makes it explain the debt simplification algorithm to me with a work example before it's even allowed to implement. And the engineer builds. It wires up clerk webhooks the right way using the SDK's verify webhook function because rule 1, we don't hand roll verification. And one more detail, this keyless mode. That line exists because keyless auth expired on me while making this video and broke sign in with the most cryptic error you have ever seen. So I had the agent write the lesson back into this file, and that's the loop I keep coming back to. Something bites you once, it becomes a rule and it never bites you or the agent again. So that's something you need to keep in mind. So this one file has 4 jobs: point the agent at real docs, which we have done here, define who decides, fence off all the dangerous stuff, and package your repeatable workflows as commands. And about nearly 60 lines, and it's the reason my prompts can be 1 sentence long, and you will take a look at that in a bit. But that's the beauty of defining agents.md file. Now, if you want to know how I set up all of these files and dive much more in depth beyond the specific video, then definitely check out the engineering course that I have coming up. Add yourself to the waitlist because I'll be giving some free goodies out. So if you're interested, sign up to the waitlist. So if we press Command P and greater than sign, and we can just head over to Cloud Code, open a new tab, right? And this is exactly what I've done over here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say, read the context folder and tell me what we are building. Don't code yet. And let's just take a look at an example to see how that looks like. It's going to look at the context folder over here. And then it's reading all the instructions, right? It's read all the 4 files that we have. And then this is exactly what it came up with. We are building Splitter, a full stack Splitwise clone. User sign-in with clerk. This is the description. There's an AI quick add in the expense model. If you type dinner in Tokyo, 4,500 yen, and Claude extracts description amount currency. But AI only does language understanding. All money math stays deterministic server side. This is the stack. What are the key decisions? And this is the build plan. Now, there are also these custom skills, right, which we haven't imported yet. So let's do that now. So in the starter, if we take a look at Claude and skills, this is the folder we want to copy. So let's just go here. We don't have a Claude folder here. So let's just copy the entire folder and go here and paste it, for example. So now we have Claude skills folder here too. So your landing page design and Next.js review as well. So we'll get to that in a second, but this is what it does. Now, there's also 3 custom / commands, which is clerk setup, architect map, and webhook sync. And the other thing we also want to do is just simply copy this nib directory as well, which has some of the mock data. Now I'm just doing this step by step just to sort of walk you through exactly how I would go ahead and build this application splitwise. And then so you have a good understanding. So we have a format function, some mock data that I have created for splitwise, some types as well, and we'll get to that in a bit. But this is our essential setup for our build plan. By doing this, it's also sort of ensuring that, okay, if the agent is exactly looking at the right thing. Now, once you have the application features laid out, having all of this would make a lot of sense, having some sort of a build plan, right? We have 14 phases, for example, and we also have these three custom slash commands. Now, if you go to our agents.md file, you're going to see we have slash clerk setup, which is phase 1, architect mat, and webhook sync, for example. And these are basically commands. So if I just type slash clerk, nothing is really going to happen because we're not going to get clerk slash, I guess we might get clerk slash setup over here, for example. We don't need to type this right now, but we're not necessarily going to have architect math as well, for example. Like, this is because this is essentially defined inside of agents.md file. But what I want to talk to you about is a third very important layer, right? First of all, we got context, we got agents.md file, and this, which are basically the rules, but this folder is a third thing, which is the skills folder that we copied. And if that word sounds fancy, very simple. A skill is essentially a markdown file. That's it. That is the entire technology. And it's just called a skill because this gives skills to agents. But if you take a look at the structure, there are two parts to it. Let's open up the landing page skill. We have the name and the description. The top is the description, what the skill is and when to use it. That's the magic part. Cloudflare reads all this description at the start of every session, and when my task matches one, I say review this code or touch a file in the app directory. It pulls in the instructions automatically. I don't need to ask for it. It just fires. Think of it as an employee handbook where the right chapter opens itself. So in this landing page design skill, it has the design spec for splitters marketing and landing page used when building or restyling the landing page, such as /app/page.tsx and so on. Now the body is essentially the payload. Now it's a 33 item checklist of Next.js mistakes that I have personally encountered when building Next.js applications. So you're basically getting it as a cheat sheet essentially. You never mark a page use client. Every server action is a public endpoint, so it must check auth first. Again, common mistakes like that. Every action button needs a pending state and a toast message because that's the experience I would like. Every time the agent writes or reviews code in the repo, the whole list gets applied for free forever. All of these rules are essentially pretty cool, right? And my favorite ones are, here's my favorite part. See items like 30 to the end, 33. Those did not exist when I started working on this project for y'all. It began as 29 items, but number 30 appeared when I found buttons silently not submitting, for example. So this is where I added, that label flips while the server action runs and the outcome lands as a toast message and so on. Again, every time you want to add something that the agent should know, every time something bites us, I said one thing, then agent needs to add that as a lesson into its own checklist. So the agent is basically maintaining its own training material. So that's the difference between adding, a chatbot and a system that compounds. Now, if we go back to the landing page skill as well, for example, it's the landing page design spec, layout, copy-wise, anti-generate design rules, right? Whatever they might be, you can define that in this specific file. So when I said we need a landing page, one sentence, remember, it didn't produce the same purple gradient AI slop you may have seen 1,000 times. It's going to refer to this specific file. Now, quick distinction, because there are actually two flavors in this repo. The agents.mb file, right? And then we also have /clerk setup, architect math, and webhook sync. These are all instructions I trigger by typing them. So the skills in Claude/skills trigger themselves when the task matches, and it's more manual versus automatic. Both are just markdown, which means both go inside of GitHub, both get code reviewed, and both work for your teammates the moment they clone the repo. But this one is specifically Claude specific versus agents.md file is for any specific agent, for example, Codex as well. So that's why we have added that over here. But you could totally add this as a skill as well inside of Claude if that's what you want to use. So on top of that, we are going to add more skills in the future when we add Clerk and Prisma. So the full stack for this whole video is context stays what to build, right? What are you going to build? Agents.md file basically say how we work, and skills are essentially the expertise that accumulates as you go. None of it is code, all of it is markdown. All of it is why prompts fit in one line, because all of this has been defined in advance. So if you're building an application, this is how I want you to start thinking. Don't just chat with your agent. Think ahead and build an application accordingly. The first step we are going to do is to add authentication, and for that we are going to use Clerk. Now, Clerk is honestly amazing. It's the easiest way to build user authentication. I'm a huge fan of Clerk. In fact, my Next.js course platform also uses Clerk because I'm such a fan. They gracefully agreed to sponsor this specific video as well. But honestly, it's the complete user management solution. And like it says, it literally, they're giving everything to our agents so that we don't need to think about auth so much. They're taking care of all the complexity for us. So in our case, we are going to go ahead and sign up with Clerk and then sign in and so on. But more importantly, what I want to share is make sure to check the link in the cheat sheet or in the description of the video and make sure to click that, or just tell Clerk I send them to you because I'm such a fan and I want to make sure that I'm able to create such videos for you. So make sure to check the link in the description below and make sure to click them so Clerk knows that you came to this specific video. Clerk is honestly amazing. You get pixel perfect UI. It's embedded in minutes. You have a bunch of components. These are all React components, so you can pretty much just drag and drop. You have a variety of different sign-in options, and all of this is easily manageable because they will manage all the users for you. But at the same time, you feel like, you know what, I'm happy with Clerk for now, but I want to eventually own my users. I don't want Clerk to do it. There are literally options in the dashboard where they just allow you to just download all the users so you can manage it on your own. But why do that when a solution like this exists so you can focus more on an AI application? Having said that, let's head over to Claude Code and add Clerk Setup over here. Now let's see what Clerk Setup is. So if we take a look at the agents.md file, this is what Clerk Setup is. So let's just run that. It's going to run Clerk init framework next in the terminal. This command creates the Clerk application. You can see phase 1 infrastructure. So it's going to read package.json, inspect the project structure, and so on. So Clerk, before you even create an account, it's going to give you a keyless mode as well. So no, you don't need to set up any environment keys yet, but you could just simply start spinning up your application, and whenever you're ready, you could just simply use it. But as our agent is doing that, let's just commit all of these files here, agent docs right now, skills, and commit it. So the docs confirm Next.js 16 proxy TS convention. Let me check the globals and scaffold it. So it's basically just going through this exact setup to scaffold our application. So this is why I like the Claude Code VS Code extension or Cursor, because Cursor is in fact built on top of Claude Code. You can easily see proxies created, page as a sign-in page, there is a sign-up page, there is a header component. All of this is basically just done because we gave it exactly the command that we're looking for. It also created m.local file over here with all these options, so we don't need to worry about it step by step. But let the agent do its job. So if we go to the app folder and go to layout file, it has essentially wrapped the entire application with Clerk provider. Now we have sign in folder and sign up folder, And this is a catch-all route inside of Next.js because it basically, anytime user goes to /sign in, it's going to just spin up the specific page. And that's just one of the conventions. Same thing for sign up as well. We have the header component, which basically adds the dashboard and sign in and sign up buttons. So if we go back to localhost 3000, it has not actually installed it. So creates the clerk app, then verify. Once clerk doctor passes, phase 1 is ready to commit and we can move towards phase 2. So this is what it has done so far. So let's copy this, head over to the terminal and paste it. And now you can see that it is getting us to sign up. So make sure to click the link in the description below as well. Since I already have an account, I'm just going to go ahead and sign in. And you can see it's literally Clerk CLI wants to access Clerk on behalf of me. So you want to say yes. It's a personal workspace, so I'm just going to hit allow. Authentication is in fact successful. You can close this window. Now, if we go back, you can already see which Clerk app do we want to link, right? Like there are so many apps. I'm just going to say, let's create a new application. And Clerk comes up with Clerk CLI, which is very handy. So let's just call this Splitter AI. Now, it's automatically going to pull up our environment variables, run Clerk Doctor to verify the setup, and so on. But while that's going on, let me just quickly walk you through what Clerk CLI is. Now, this is the beauty of it, and I wanted to kind of show you in action before I walk you through what it is. It asks your agent to use the Clerk CLI to add authentication to your application, which is exactly what we did. It is going to get us to log in, create the application, set up everything. And it has a bunch of these commands, so it will set up and manage authentication right from your terminal. And I do think the future of agents is just working in your terminal. Like agent just needs all these commands to execute it automatically. So you can see Clerk init start in the repo you already have. It detects the framework, links the app. Similarly, if you want to deploy it, it will get it ready to deploy it as well. And it is going to literally let your agent handle everything. So you can tell your agent what to build. You can configure auth, you could set up organizations, onboard the first customer, and go live with confidence. And this specific CLI for agents and developers is purpose-built for developers using AI to ship fast and securely. This video is kindly sponsored by Clerk, but I just freaking love the CLI here. So now, as you can see, we have already done that. We have linked our application, and now as it says, just use Clerk Doctor to verify it. So let's just do that. Let's run Clerk Doctor. All the checks are passing, but any local is missing, right? So you can see over here, we could just use this command to pull it. So that literally told us exactly what we need to do, right? So we can also just say Clerk Update, because there is an update here, and let's just say Y, and it's just going to update. Now, since I already had a CLI, that was not something I had before, so for you, it might basically be the same. But again, if you want to make sure if it works, let's just run Clerk Doctor. This will just tell us everything. Application is installed, and the local file does exist with these keys, so we did not need to pull anything, it just works. So now I'm just going to run npm run dev again, and you can already see all these files here, right? Like we have, if you take a look at end local file, it automatically linked everything and all my keys are automatically set up, so we don't need to do anything. Now, we have also just added this. So like, for example, initially, even though the previous API used sign in and sign up components, if you have this in your project, the latest way to do things is in fact using the show component inside of Clerk. Go through Clerk Setup, and it's going to then update the sign in and sign up components. It will just use the show component because you're already using the latest version of Clerk CLI. All right, so now over here, we still have sign in, but let's just say if you go to header, we have the show component here, show when signed out and so on. So it's already just doing that. So now if we go here and run npm run dev, and let's refresh the page, we are seeing this beautiful header. So if I click sign in and go to continue with Google, use my email address, for instance, then in fact, I'm signed in to Clerk. Just going to verify that I'm a human, not an AI. There is an issue over here. Sign in and sign in here because user is already signed in and application is configured. To allow rendering enable multi-session mode, this only appears during development. So we can just copy this, head over to the terminal and just paste this specific error. So it essentially gets fixed. It's a dev only information notice and Splitter specs is 1 account per session anyway. So it's, again, because we have all these markdown files set out, we can just do. You can see that as I refresh the page, it's in fact logged me in, and it has the dashboard. Welcome Ankita, which is exactly what we want. And if I sign out and again sign back in, continue to Google, I only did not get redirected to dashboard right away initially. It's because I was already using this browser for other application, which is why it did it. But as you can see, the user modal is there. Now, Plurk already gives us this UI. So we have the profile, security, user can set password, delete accounts, change profile photos, add email addresses, and so on. There's a lot that's going on here. We can go back to the dashboard and homepage as well. So Plurk is essentially set up for us, which is amazing. So our phase 1 is complete. Now let's look at phase 2 of our plan. So if we go to context, build plan, like I said, it is the Plurk stuff that we have over here, right? The next step is UI foundation with mock data. So we have dashboard, welcome line, group cards, group view, and so on. So the next step over here is to just paste this specific prompt. Let's build the UI first with fake data, dashboard, and group page. Now, if you remember inside of lib, we did have some mock data here, so it already knows that. So let's just go ahead and press enter. So now it's literally going to go through the build plan and build the UI foundation for us. And if we take a look at ShadCN, that comes inside design system and theming. For now, we're just focusing mainly on just the UI foundation. We'll add ShadCN later. Now, ideally, you could also just add ShadCN here. It doesn't really matter, but I just want to show you like step-by-step process on adding typed mock data and then go from there. And you can see already that it's saying, let me load the project's Next.js review checklist first. So it's going to go through here, go through this specific skill because it realized that we're adding Next.js code. So since we are writing a bunch of app router stuff, so it's going to the Next.js review skill that we have set up. So it's not going to make some silly mistakes. Again, I highly recommend you to use the Next.js skills wherever necessary because I truly believe that I have created a really good list when it comes to building our application. That's installing the icon library here. And again, if we take a look inside of skills, it's going through our plan for landing page design because it's recognized that we have that landing page too. And it's using the Lucid React icon library that we have defined here in that skill app as well. So it's going through our mock data because that's literally what I said. Lib already has files, so let me see what's in there. And now it's going to build a UI foundation here. The 2 pages both stay server components because again, that goes back to our Next.js skills that we have defined and it's fetching from the mock layer. So it's writing avatar, it's writing balance bill, it's writing expense model, for example, too. But it's defining some of these components by scratch. We do want ShadCN here. So we could literally get it to do it, but we also have a step later on to update that too. So let's not worry about that for now. So if we go back to our application and refresh the page, we have dashboard and you can already see it has groups, apartments, it has new group name, for instance. It has this splitter API stuff, right? And your application might look different than mine, but it's very similar to what I have, right? Like it's creating this mock data, so we could just use it. For example, go our trip, for instance, add expense, and so on. So it might look slightly different, but I think that's sort of the beauty of it. If you want to replicate it exactly, we could also just have it create screenshots as well. But we'll take a look at that in a second. All right, so this is the phase 2 commit point, which is that it has the dashboard page welcome line, which is, if you take a look, it has welcome Ankita. So it has literally grabbed that from Clerk. So if we go to our page, which is app folder, and then you have dashboard and page, you are going to see we are using Clerk. Then we have a bunch of mock data. We have user, which comes directly from current user. We also have a bunch of components and forms and buttons here as well. Then we have the groups page as well, which has different groups too. So we have expenses, we have all this stuff. Now, what hurts my eye is that it's basically coding buttons by scratch. Like we have Shatsy and UI components for that. But again, let's not worry about that for now. But it has essentially like literally just done that, like build the entire thing that we just described in our build plan, which is exactly what we're looking for. So now this is the phase 2 commit point. So let's just go ahead and commit it. And if we go back here, you're going to see if we click on go trip, we have edit, nothing happens, delete, nothing happens, but you can add an expense. For example, you could go to home, you can go to dashboard, you could, create a new group, for example, like, hey, nothing happens, but we just have mock data for now with a bunch of different UI that just works. So now let's go here and say phase 2 plan. And let's just go ahead and hit commit. This UI does not match to what this new UI is, right? And you want our application to look exactly what we are building. Now, if you're happy with this UI, what the agent has come up with, you can entirely skip this step. But I feel like this is exactly where you can truly step up and design your application the way you would want it to. So what we are going to do now is basically go back to our starter repo, and I've added new files. In this case, now we have a screenshots folder. In the screenshot folders, I have literally taken screenshots of how our application should look like. So you could think of this as a reference image for our agent to refer. So we have dashboard.jpg, expense modal.jpg, group page, landing page, and so on. And this README file tells exactly what it is. So it references screenshot of the finished app. When building UI, open the matching screenshot first and treat it as the target. Expected files are these. They're all in light mode, and you can sort of see how it works. Now, if we go to our build plan, there's also been a change here, which is that now we have this new section called visual reference. So the phase 2 UI won't match the intended design from the words alone. Fix it with pictures with not longer prompts. So as we do, right, we have dropped screenshots of the target design, prompt the agent to make each page match its screenshot, and keep the screenshots in the repo. They're part of the spec now, and every later phase checks against them, which is exactly what we want. So let's just copy this, and this will already be in your starter repo, but I just figured this is an important step here right now. So now let's go to build plan and go here and add this visual reference screenshot. Head over to the starter repo, go to project overview. And if we go to the last section, we also have gonna add this visual reference guide too, that this specific folder holds the screenshots of the finished app. And again, I'm just showing this iteratively so that you sort of get an idea for how you can tweak this specific entire system to add more features to it as we discover more changes. So now we have done that. So let's just copy the screenshots folder, head over to context and paste it. All right, so now we have all of this now, which is perfect, exactly what we're looking for. And now inside of plot code, let's just paste the specific prompt wherein we say the UI is not matching my design. I added screenshots in this, make each page match its screenshot. So let's just paste this, and it's automatically going to just reference the new changes that we added. So it has all these screenshots. We have already updated project overview with visual reference. We have already updated our build plan with visual reference as well. So now it's added a bunch of colors here to globals.css. We have layout here. It's updated that. So if you take a look at the changes, you can see it's now a different font altogether. there is a pill here, a header here, right? You can already see it's making all these changes to exactly map what we're looking for. It's updating all the colors necessary. Avatar has the same background, foreground, page, and so on. So if we head over here, you're going to see, let's just zoom out a little. You can already see there are a bunch of changes. Now the group is over here. There are these two values. If I click on the group trip, we have a lot of matching stuff to what we have here too, right? And this is 110%. You can see that it's already matching a lot. It's still ideating. Alrighty, and now it's done. Reworked all three surfaces to match screenshot rather than I dropped colors and so on. So now if we take a look, this is how it looks like. It's very similar to what we have over here. Now, it is slightly wider than we would like over here. It should match, but overall it looks pretty good. We have different members. All of this is mock data. We have to also remember that. And we have dashboard here, all the things that we need, for instance. Alrighty, so now let's just go ahead and commit all these changes here. So we can just say phase 2B and go from there. Alright, so now enough of mock data, let's hook up real data now. So let's just go here and say, okay, now hook up to the real database and get rid of the fake data. So that is the next step in our plan, which is the Prisma. So it's going to look at the schema, which is this database schema right here, and it's going to follow it verbatim. So if you take a look, we have server action for create group, add member. Every action must start with await auth first. Upserts the sign-in user as dev fallback, and mock data is deleted and page queries through lib/queries. And we've literally defined how our architecture looks like. Now, if you really want me to create a separate video on how to architect an application like this, definitely comment down below and let me know as well. But this is the next step in our process. And if you take a look at project overview as well, it's getting all the overview from here, like what your dashboard look like, what this group page look like, and so on. So let's see now what it comes up with. All right, so phase 3, real database and server actions, mock data deleted. The plan is Prisma plus SQLite per the schema doc, and it's installing now everything that we need to get going. So installing Prisma, Sonar. Sonar is a library that shows the toast, so it's doing that. And it has a bunch of server actions too. So if you look at the changes, now it has gotten Prisma and Sonar for us. The new config convention, so it's going to scaffold Prisma in it. And again, why I think that CLI is the future for AI agents. So now it's setting up Prisma config and schema.prisma, and it's also getting a bunch of Prisma skills, which is pretty cool. So for example, if we go here, we have Prisma CLI skills. So similar to how Clerk has stuff, Prisma also has a bunch of skills that it has generated by default. So we can just train the agents and follow the best practices like we talked about. So by default, what's going to happen is Prisma is essentially going to use SQLite as a local database, but then when it's deployed, it will use Postgres. So it's literally just doing that right now. The schema per database.md file is exactly what we want. So if we go to context and database schema, this is exactly the schema here. It's writing it to prisma/dev.db. We have schema.prisma file with all the specific model information, which again, it got it from our database skill, basically, our database instruction, our database schema over here. So we have defined all of that already for us. Now, I think the tricky part is not to just build applications anymore. It's in fact to architect the applications like we discussed, and how we can basically get all of these context, skills, infrastructure, get going to actually build what we want to build. Now, as it's writing all of that, if I refresh the page, it's still referring to mock data, but slowly it will be able to update it. But if you take a look up at a prompt, it's pretty natural language, right? Like it's so simple and it's able to understand because of how we have architected the application. So even if you were to add like a completely new feature to this app, Follow this step by step, like go through project overview, add the description and the spec for it, go through architecture and figure out and work with AI on where it should belong. Create a database schema and create a build plan so you know exactly how each feature would work. And lean on skills, specialized skills to basically tell the agent, teach the agent for what to build. Because now remember, building is the easiest part. It's all of these bolts that we need, bits and bolts that we need to actually architect everything. Now it's adding toaster from Sonar so that we can show toast messages for adding a new group and so on. And these are all the changes that, we have over here. For example, if you take a look at page, there's a dashboard page, and it's in fact getting group summaries from queries. So if we go here, you're going to see it's in fact querying the database itself. And database does come from Prisma over here. Now if we go back here, it's in fact going to start throwing errors, but don't worry. Wait for the agent to complete working. This way, it's going to work exactly how we intended to. The goal for this video is to focus on how senior engineers architect applications so you can see how everything works. So the way Prisma works is that anytime you want to create the schema, it's automatically also going to create the types for us. So it has generated these types for us. So our application that can use that automatically. And for that, it does need a Prisma client. So it runs npx Prisma generate. It generates those generated types from our schema. So our application just understands we don't need to manually add types anymore. So as you can see, this group does not exist. So let's go to dashboard. No groups yet. And let's see what happens. It's still creating. So let's hold on a second. But the error is gone. So now if we go to Prisma folder, it has schema.prisma with the schema, a local SQLite database that it's using, migrations for running things, and it also has this script for just a smoke test. So like it's adding data and so on to understand if the database works as expected. So now there are no groups here. If I say, let's say, oops, that's not what I wanted, but that's okay. If I say and create the group, there we go. Amalfi group has been created. And if I add expense, we have the modal too. So you can see how insane this is. This is literally the screenshot from that I had given that it's working. It still slightly looks different because we're not using Shatsy and UI components yet, but you can already see how everything just works. And there we go. So now it's working as expected. Our create is working too. So if we go back to the build plan and let's take a look at it, we have all of this information. So we have creating the group, adding the member, adding the expense. We are ensure the sign-in user exists. And now we have an actions folder with expenses, with how to add the expense and so on. But like we said that if we need this user ID block for server actions, for groups, creating the group, adding the member, and so on too. And all of this uses Prisma, which is exactly what we want. And this file is a server action file. That means every single function here is basically syntactic sugar for exposing an API route for us. All right, so this is working exactly how we want it to. So let's just commit these changes. Now, if we go to Amalfi and let's just add an expense and let's just say, AI is not integrated yet, so let's just say Beach Club and $50, and let's just save expense and $50 is there. So you paid $50, right? Like this, that's it. Now let's create another user here. I'm going to sign out and let's just go ahead and sign in. Sign in here, verify you are a human. This does not work. And if you try to do that and switch users, it does not work because our application assumes you're only going to have one user. So just refresh the page one more time. And now as you can see, we have this user as well. So if I sign out again, let's go to sign in, continue with Google and log in here. Now when go to Amalfi, I'm just going to invite myself because you need an account for inviting a new user. So I can say add the member has been added, which is exactly what we want.
Now I can just edit doesn't work yet, delete doesn't work yet. But if I add an expense, I have this user, we can split equally, and I can say dinner and $40 and split equally. So now $40, that means my share is $20, which is exactly what we have. And here I didn't really split it, right? So I just paid for it. I didn't say that it's going to be split with anyone. So in this case, I do owe $20, is exactly what we want. Alrighty, so our application is looking pretty good. So now we can just go ahead and commit it. So this is basically, if we go to the build plan, this is phase 3. So let's just go ahead and commit phase 3. There we go. All right. So next step is for us to work on debt simplification and all the other stuff as well. So let's do that next. Now, if we head over to the agents.md file, we have this other skill called as architect math. In this case, we are saying whenever architect math is added, right? Whenever we say architect math, just like that, it's going to enter plan mode instead of plot code. It's not going to write any application code yet. And based on the schema, it's going to basically give us some sort of a debt minimization logic, right? So let's just do that. So if I say architect math, you can say run architect math is one of the custom workflows entering plan mode and presenting the algorithm walkthrough. So that's exactly what we want. And now enter plan mode has been executed. So you should now, whenever there's plan mode, that means you're planning the feature. So that's exactly what we're doing here. And it's now going to give us like a debt minimization logic. So for example, if person A owes $10, B owes C $10, then A owes C $10 because both of them owe B. So like A owes C. So that's the minimization logic we are looking for. It is going to write that for us, the architect math logic. And this is our phase 4 debt simplification logic. So we can review it and say how the logic will look like and so on, right? And if it looks good, I'm just going to say yes and auto accept. This is the Claude plan, for example, and it has created that plan for us and it lives inside the Claude folder. So it's just going to add that for us. So we have it inside of Claude plans over here. And now as it does, it's just going to simplify the debts for us. And that's going to be our phase 4. Oops. I'm going to say yes. And if we take a look at the changes, we have balances being updated, queries being updated, with debts are being simplified. And simplified debts is a brand new file here that simplifies the debt for us. And then there's a test file too, which is amazing. So it's going to do the math for us, so we don't have to worry about it. And each time, just review the file just to make sure everything works as expected. Since I've already tested this application, I know these files, but you can basically see like this algorithm is not the hardest part. What's the hardest part is the architecture, which we are working on. Alrighty, so this works. Phase 4 is completed. To see it live in a 3-person group, add an expense paid by B, split with A, then one paid by C, split with B, and so on. So if we go here, we can just add a third person. So I'm just going to add this email. As you can see, no splitter account with that email. Now, I don't want this at the bottom. I, in fact, want it at that in the middle. So let's just go to Toaster and say position will be top center. So there we go. It's right there, which is where I want. The account doesn't exist yet, but let's just sign out, sign in, or like sign up. And in this case, let's just enter me.@kulkarninkira.com. Let's enter whatever password and verify it. Okay. Cleared is very secure, so we have to just say select password and fill password, creating an account, and now gonna verify it. There we go. And now this account has been created, this user. Alrighty, so now I'm just gonna log out, go back to the original user, right? And let's go to Amalfi. And this time, let's just add the user here to the group. So this was a new user that we created. And now let's just add the three-way expense. Let's just say drinks, $10, save expense. Add an expense. Again, drinks, $10. And if you take a look, it's between these two. So let's just say drinks, save expense. So as you can see here,
I paid $5. I paid $5 again. So I'm just owed $5.
So the debt has essentially been simplified, right? This person owes me $5 and I have no connection with this other person at all. Or I guess I do with this specific value. Let's just do this. B split with A, then 1 paid by C split with B. Alright, so now let's just go ahead and commit it, which is
phase 4 is complete. So let's just commit it because we have tests that work, so we can just rely on that.
Alright,
so the next step, if we go to agents.md file, is webhook sync. Now, what is this webhook thing for?
Now, we just want to make sure that whenever user created, user updated, or user deleted
is triggered on the clerk side, we just need to add that to the database as well. So let's just run this, right? Just say run.
And this is now going to take that
agents.md file. So it's going to now create a hook for that, hook for us.
So now it's going to use the clerk webhook skill.
Go to clerk webhook. It automatically comes from clerk CLI. So let's just go with that. It's going to load the clerk webhook skill first for the current verify webhook API. So it's going to create a route for us, use clerk webhook skill. So anytime gets created, it's automatically going to add to the Prisma table as well. So for example, if it's deleted, then it's going to add that too. So if any of the changes are being made inside of this specific modal and manage account, it will also be reflected in our database. All right, so now if we go here to the changes, we are going to see all of those. So it's creating a route for us over here, right? So anytime user updated, so for example, email address is updated or any of that is updated and will get updated. If the user gets deleted, then database user will also get deleted. So whatever happens in clerk will also happen in our database, which is exactly what we want. And again, whenever you're using a service like clerk, because users are being managed by clerk, this is a really good practice to do so.
While that happens, let's take a look at the next step. So now this is done. So let's just say phase 5 is done
and committed. Alrighty. So this is going really well. The next step for us is to work on flexible splits. So if someone says paid by member and split equally, that should be the case. So if we
go here and restart the server,
refresh the page over here, if we click on add expense, right now it's only equally.
He also wanted to have things like equally and percentage and
exact amount and so on too. So let's do that next. The prompt we can say is like, I want to split expenses unevenly too, like by percentage or exact amount.
So let's just do that. And then this is the flexible splits that it will look at.
Then we have multi-currency. And this is like an interesting problem to have because I right now live in Italy, but my friends live in United States. If I'm going on a group trip with them, I should be able to split expenses accordingly. And we should all be able to select a currency and then automatically my app should do the math for me. This is a paid feature on the actual Splitwise app, but I want this feature for my actual app that I'm building over here. So that's something that I should be able to do. So that should be the prompt next. So now instead of phase 6, it's flexible splits. So it's literally creating a splits.ts file, which is equal, percentage, and exact. So we can basically the expenses. Now we can add expense to take split input and validate to compute splits. So that's the flexible splits feature. But in this build plan as well, remember how this is a checklist for my plan? So you have to define all of that for yourself as well. And the model needs to also reflect that. So now if I go to add expense, this is just equally for now. So it should actually update
Not just equally, but otherwise too. So now it's updating the model as well. Expense model, which is what we want. So like it's going to that. Now test was split math and full verification. So now if I click on add, you can see percentage and exact amounts are also there. So if I said percentage, this is 20, this is 60, and this is the rest of the percentage, which is 20. So if it's like 100, we should be able to say drinks at the beach. And if I add it, then if you paid 100, you'll share 20, and then accordingly the rest of the math works out as well based on the percentage. Alrighty, so let's just say yes over here. So now there's a test file for everything. So tests are making sure that our logic works accordingly. So if I add 100 and split 50, 25, 25, so then who owns whom will reflect the uneven shares to the simplification. So this works as expected. So now we can see this is phase 6. Now the next step is for us to say, my friends travel a lot, let them add expenses in other currencies, which is the multi-currency step. So we have to display a currency switcher, expense rows, expense entry, and so on. So now, again, it's going to work that into it. And this is phase 7, which is exactly that it caught up, right? And it's adding, at first it's always USD. At first it's always USD over here. So now it's going to update it. The migrations are working on because again, you assume something initially and now it's updating it accordingly. So you can already see amount sent, always USD, converted at once, original currency is USD, but dates it to date other currencies too. So we have currencies, which have all these different currencies. We have get USD rates, and it's using this specific API, to get the currency rate. So it's literally just saying, okay, what is the currency rate in USD? Which is pretty neat actually, that it actually decided, automatically did that. And it ran the migration too. So later on, it just has to update the UI. So if I refresh the page, it's still working on the back end right now, and then it will update the UI. Currency select, exactly what we want. So this is USD still. Now the pill, both pages and the model need to have the current balance pill selector. Add expense, USD. It's updating the model. Let's say yes. And it's verifying the API response shape. And it has the split test file. So it's just going to make sure everything works as expected. And it still did an error. So let's just give it some direction here and update it because it did not work as expected. So if you get an error like that, just direct it a little bit because something is not working right. It could be existing data, so we need migrations for that, or it could be something else too. We just go to groups, I guess dashboard, go here. It still has the issue. So currency code is required, so we just need to update it. This error is the exact gotcha document in the architecture notes. The dev server is still holding the old Prisma client, so the new doesn't exist. So what we need to do is stop and restart the dev server. Let's just stop the server, restart it, and there we go. It's working now. So if I click on add expense, we have this currency. So I can just say euro 50 and it's divided. And here I can just say hotel. I wish hotels were this cheap. So there we go. Now we have euros as well. At the same time, I can select a base currency here too. So I can just say GBP as well if I want. So things like that, I think we could just tweak it accordingly. Everything at the end of the day will get converted and it works as expected. So now we could just go here and update phase, and the phase was multi-currency, which is phase 7. So you can just hit commit. So you can see how once you put in the additional effort of architecting everything, all the steps are complete. All right, so now it's time for us to look at the AI quick add feature. So if we go back to what essentially should happen, and let me just quickly refresh. If I add expense, if I say dinner in Tokyo, and then let's just say 1,000 yen, then when I click on parse, it should automatically set this to yen, which is exactly what it did. And it just did a split of 50-50
for example, and dinner in Tokyo got also updated here. So that's the AI feature. This way, we don't need to manually type everything. We could also just use like voice to just say that and add the expense quickly. So that's exactly what we want to build today. So if we head over to our application right here, when you click on add expense, right now we have this quick add, but we really don't have it hooked with AI. So that's what we want to do. So the next step is we can give it a prompt. Can I just type dinner in Tokyo 4,500 yen and have AI fill the form? So this is now going to look at this specific step, right? This is the box in the expense model, free text. Let's just use Claude Sonnet 4.5, message.parse. Currency constraint to support at enum. AI never does money math. It's very simple, right? It's just that we need AI to parse the text and so on. And graceful degradation without Anthropic API key. So if I don't have an API key, just tell me. So that's exactly what this will do. And if you look for AI, this is exactly what it also give instructions, right? AI quick add model, description, amount of currency, and so on. So this should also give it a really good idea. So now it wants to use the skill Claude API, for example. So I'm just going to say yes, because that's the skill we want. And this is phase 8, which is where we are at as well. So it's using the Claude API skill because Claude also has its own skills as well to build this whole thing. So the cool thing about skill is that these companies are already training our model for how it should perform, or our agent how it should perform. So we don't need to really retrain it over and over again. So now it's installing Anthropic SDK and Zord. It's checking for API key. So if we take a look at the changes, we have the Anthropic AI SDK and so on as well, which is what we want. All right, so now it's parsing the expense, right? So if we go to the changes, it has added this new action called as AI. It's imported Anthropic SDK. Again, every single thing should go to auth. So it also has auth because the user ID must be present. And if there is no API key, it's going to complain about that and throw an error. And then initialize the SDK, parse it. And this is the prompt it has given. And it has used exactly this specific model, Claude Sonnet 4.5. Now to focus a little bit on the model, you may wonder, well, why not use Opus or any of the latest models? I mean, if you really think about it, we don't need a lot of intelligence in this specific AI feature. We don't need to be wasting money and tokens on expensive models. We can just use some things as simple as Claude Sonnet 4.5. And I'm truly a huge believer of that. You don't need to use the most expensive models for everything. Just pick and choose, for example, if you have a budget or an application like this where you need some AI capabilities, but we don't really need to do anything. All right, so there is no Anthropic key setup. So we just need to go to oops, not that one, but local file. And here we need to add Anthropic, right? And I don't know what that key is. So now, if we head over to our Claude documentation, this is how you can get the Claude API key. Sign into your Claude console, open the API key page over here, which is this page, and create the key, and then set the expiry to never or 30 days depending on your preference, and just set whatever key. You will get the key and then copy and paste that key inside it. Now I'm gonna copy the key for sure, but I'm not going to show that to you because I don't want you to use my key. And now I have set the key, for instance. So now it's giving us this very fun prompt. Split 60 euros pizza with the gang. All right, so now if we head back to our API and let's just add expense and let's just say split 60 euros pizza with the gang and hit parse. Let's see what happens. There we go. It has parse, send a toast message, 60 euros has been sent in 2020. And if we can just see in the expense, it's in fact in euros, which is exactly what we're looking for. So now, isn't that amazing? It has basically just done the math for us, so we don't necessarily need to worry about any of that. And now we have AI capabilities in our application too. So if you take a look at the code, right now it has created this AI file. Again, because we set up the architecture, right? It's an action. It's using Zord. It has described what the schema needs to be, such as description, amount, and currency. It complains if there is no API key. initializes it, gives the prompt, and returns that parse data. So whatever the parse output is. And if you take a look at the prompt, it says extract expense details from a free text note about shared expense, amount, currency, and description, which is beautiful and exactly what we want. And these three items are also defined in the schema. So this is what we expect as well, which is amazing. And then once it's done that, it's just basically using basic React to parse it and set the description, amount, and so on. Once we get the data, even if I press enter, it's going to enter and so on too, which are additional capabilities that it has added. Amazing. So here we can say phase 8 is done as well, which is exactly what we want. All right, so now if we head back to our application, you can already see it is coming along really well. We don't have a landing page yet, but we do have a lot of the group pages adding expense feature already done. So now let's just go ahead and add more UI elements to it. I know that you could have also done the other way, like added chassis and components in the beginning, and then later on just gone ahead with updating the logic and whatnot. It's fine, to be honest. I personally prefer working on the logic first and updating the UI elements later, but it's totally up to you. So the next step in the process is design system and theming. We can just say the UI looks bland, move the chassis and make the clerk models match so that it's able to match the theme and designer of our application. So let's just do that. And if we go to our project overview, we don't have chassis in here, but we have all the instructions that we need over here. So let's see what it comes up with. Now, alternatively, as you can see here, we have, now if you see here, we have this tweak CN theme. I'm just going to say yes here, but if you see, this tweak CN is in fact a beautiful, I'm absolutely in love with this, where it gives us these themes that we could just apply inside of our globals.cs and it will take whatever we need. So we could simply just go through the themes here and like apply whatever we want. And then let's say this is a theme we want, or let's say bubblegum is a theme we want, then we can just press code and then copy this and paste it inside of our application, and that's it. Our application is going to start to look like this. So what we need is maybe some sort of like a coral green theme. So if you take a look, tweak CN theme applied, and what we need are northern lights if we want. But if we take a look, we don't have northern lights here. We have some other theme, but feel free to go for whatever theme you're looking for. We can go for tangerine, starry night, sunset horizon, soft pop, and so on. Let's say yes here because these are all the components that we are looking for. And going back to our theme, there are a lot of different themes we can discover. For example, so the theme we're going to go for is Bright Harbor right here. So let's click on that. And this is the theme. And let's view it. And then we can just simply say code and then copy this whole thing. Or just copy npm and just give it to Claude. All right, let's just say yes here. And maybe we just tweak it and just say apply theme, this one as well. And now it's going to apply the theme from the registry URL. So if we go back to our application, still working on it, it's updating everything. Say yes. Something failed here, like install failed. It also removed the default icon. So default icon is still here. Let's give it a second for it to work. And one thing is that this font needs to be available for it to apply. So it's using the Poppins font and also the JetBrains font. I really love the Next font Google package because it automatically imports Google fonts and also tree shakes them so that only the fonts that are included are only available in our package. Alrighty, so this is what it should do. And if we take a look at icon.svg, this is the icon it came up with. So let's just say yes. And we do have a new icon now, which is this icon. Amazing. Now if I go to clerk model, it looks like it does have some sort of a theme. There we go. The theme has also been applied. As you can see, the links have changed and so on too. So it looks more native and a part of our application. Perfect. And if you take a look at components,
This is what it has done. There's now a UI folder with all these different components, and it's just a matter of using them. So we won't need a lot of the components that we added by default. We could just simply use the Shatsi and UI components here. So we have avatar, and this should basically be replaced with Shatsi and avatar. Avatar, that's what it's doing now. Migrate shared components. Now, ideally, this is what happens in the real world, right? And that's why I wanted to show you this process, because you're not necessarily going to make the right decisions from the get-go, but sometimes you just have to tweak it and update the prompt. There we go. So now you can see avatar is in fact coming from UI components, and code has drastically reduced now. Similarly, we have badge for balance bill as well. And then we have header being updated too with a bunch of these buttons, button from UI button 2. So all this button is going to be what we need. You can already see now the layout has automatically been fixed too because of Shatsi and UI. So we didn't need to do anything here. All right. So currency select. You can see now it's way more beautiful. We can add expense, right? And the dashboard page too, it's using whatever components, so avatar stack, balance bill. So if you take a look at the changes that are made, there were quite a few changes here. They're using the Shatsi and theme. Buttons are getting replaced. There are a bunch of UI components being added. This is a very handy function to merge a bunch of class names. Dashboard is updated to use the card component. For example, group page is also updated with button and card component too. And let's just say yes here. Perfect. It's looking really nice. We have the icon SVG as well. Globals.css has been replaced with the new tweak CN theme too. And we have a component.json, which is essentially a JSON file which includes a description of where everything is located for Shatsi and UI. So if we head back, you can already see it's looking way nicer. Very similar to what we have here. Just a little zoomed in. But add expense, beat jack. The drop downs are looking very nice. We have these two buttons too. Let's just say yes because it's running to make sure TypeScript is happy. Say yes. Smoke testing, rendering with the new theme, which is amazing. And it's almost done. There we go. So everything has been updated and phase 9 is completed too. So if we head back to our application, this is how it looks like. Whoops. Let's just restart it and refresh the page. Let's restart it and refresh the page. And there we go. So now our application is looking very nice. Our theme is amazing. So we could just commit our phase 9 changes. So let's just do that and just say phase 9. Beautiful. Alrighty. So now the next step is for us to work on the landing page. So for the landing page, if we head back to our and go to the landing page, it's just a default Next.js page. What we would want is a page like this, right? So we already have screenshots available. So we can just say, we need a landing page, use the landing page design skill. So if we go back to Claude and skills, we have a landing page skill. That is exactly what we need here. Shatsi and UI components, minimal copy, auth-aware CTA, server component, layout blueprint, some instructions here, what field that we're looking for, and so on. And then checklist before it's done. So let's just enter that. At the same time, since this is a skill, it's automatically just going to pick it up because it's inside landing page design. So whatever you're looking for in terms of landing page 2 in the design spec, you could also just do that. Again, look at that. It has picked up the landing page design skill, which is what we want. So whatever instructions you want, make sure to give it here, right? This way you don't have to worry about it. Again, it's all about making sure your prompts are right, your instructions and skills are defined correctly so that your application looks accurate, exactly how you would want. And because it already has the screenshots, it is going to pick up the screenshots from landing, which is right here. It has the header. All right, and it's basically smoke testing the landing page just to make sure it all matches. Just say yes. So if you go to the build plan, this is the instruction, right? Build a page using the skill,
hero improved card, feature cards, 3-step how it works, final CTA, fun pass, right? So let's just say yes. It is going to redirect it. We are on port 3001.
Let's just restart the server here.
Let's refresh the page. And look at that. Our page is looking very nice. It matches the landing page that we have. Beautiful. So if we head back, you can see it has very similar landing page to what we had over here. Split the expenses. The copy doesn't exactly match, so we can redirect that. Track shared costs in any currency. So I believe we don't have any instruction that it should match. So we can say the page should match the landing page screenshot and update the skill. Even though it did a pretty good job, if we wanted to exactly match a screenshot, we could just redirect that a little bit because I don't think we have updated that in the skill. But the look and feel were exactly very similar to what we have over here. So let's see what it comes up with. And always whenever you're making changes and the agent did not get it right, get it to update the skill so that in the future you have everything documented for future projects as well. Say yes, verifying the screenshot, and it's looking way better, right? Like it is matching now to what we have here. And we can just go to globals.css, and if we take a look, we have BG background. We just set it to BG light. There we go. And it's updating the skill for us too. So we have the globals.css, agents.md file, and a landing page update here too. Source of truth, this is what it updated. And globals.css, this is what it updated to. Perfect. Yes. Let's write that. So our landing page is looking very nice and it's matching to what we have here, right? You already see. Beautiful. So it's not exactly pixel perfect, but it's good enough that we could pass it. Now, if you really want it pixel perfect, you can just say it needs to be pixel perfect and so on. But honestly, it's like so close that we don't need to worry about it. That's verifying the page compiles, lints, and build. And there we go. It's done. So this is pretty nice. So now we could just say phase 10 is also done. Now it's time to work on the feedback a little bit. Now you can see we have a bunch of different items here in the checklist too. That there should be a delete expense, sparkle indicator on expenses, and so on too, right? So what we could say is just run the Next.js review skill that we have and just make any changes necessary over here too. So let's just fix whatever it finds here. We're just making sure that it's applying everything that we need and it's working as intended. It's following all the best practices here. So whatever is going to find, it's just going to automatically fix. It has already picked up the Next.js review skill here. So if it made any mistakes along the way, the skill is there to protect us from that. So as you can see, it's creating a dashboard loading page. It's also adding a next config file. It's adding a error handling page in case something were to go wrong, which is again, it missed. So it's basically handling all the different edge cases that it missed thanks to our Next.js skills. Then it's caching data, which is very nice because we don't have to requery every single time. It's caching where it's needed. And cache functions come directly from React. So it doesn't need to refetch the same query over and over again, which is amazing. So you can see it's caching, get group summaries. Cache memoizes per request the page and generate metadata share the same logic. Because for SEO, we're going to need the same thing, so why not? Let's say yes for TypeScript checking. And it's also added the generate metadata function, which is responsible for SEO. And since get group detail is in fact cached now, even though the same function is being called somewhere else, it's only being called once and invoked once. So it's made quite a few changes thanks to our Next.js skill so that it's not going to repeat itself. All right, we fixed it. So let's just say Next.js to skill changes and commit that. Perfect. Now the next part is phase 11, which is any feedback we may have. So we have to make sure that every action button has a pending label. Then whatever we have declared in the Next.js review skill, delete expense, trash icon per row. Right now, nothing really happens when you click on delete. So that's something we need to do. So let's just say phase 11. And you can add feedback as part of the build plan too. I've just added that in so that you know how we could iteratively work on it. So most items are already in earlier phases, right? But delete expense isn't, so it's going to add that for us. So when you press on delete, it should actually delete it. While that happens, let's also make one quick change, which is that if it's a button, let's just say on hover, we need cursor pointer or even in link. Because right now, we need a cursor pointer versus some other cursor. Just say yes. There we go. See how it's more visible now, the cursor pointer? And as it works on it, let's just say yes. So if you take a look in expenses, it's added a delete expense function. Then in groups page, it has hooked that up. And every single time it hooks it up, it's going to have, for example, if it's fresh, it's a sparkles emoji. And it's going to hook up the delete expense feature there. Sparkles, delete row button. The delete row button is essentially going to invoke action, which comes as delete row function. So now we have types, and if it's a fresh expense, we are adding a sparkle emoji. That means it was just added in the last minute. So it has added some logic here which did not exist earlier. Again, just improve our application. There we go. It's already done. So I want to go ahead and delete this one. Expense has been deleted. All these expenses can be deleted, for instance. Update it and voila, it all works. So if I add it and just say dinner in Amalfi 400 USD and parse split equally, then it's 133. And then since this was added last minute, it's a sparkles emoji. That means it all works. All right, so now let's just go ahead and say this is phase 11. It's committed. Now, delete works, but edit does not. We need to reopen the modal and edit any changes as well, which is the next phase in our application. The pencil icon per expense row opens the same modal. This is the component, pre-fill it, delete the expense, add the expense, and so on. So let's just add the prompt, add the edit feature, and update skills how we are doing it otherwise. So whatever is needed to do so. So that's what we need next, the edit feature, which is our phase 12. Now phase 13 is essentially bugs that have been documented, right? Just as part of our application. You don't necessarily need to do it because it might have already fixed it as we build the application, but there are also some stretch goals here for you to, if you really want to work on those. When after edit, our application is pretty much good to go. So phase 12 is where we're at, which is here. And as you can see, it's updating the existing expense model so that it can take in a new prop for either adding an expense or editing an existing expense, which is exactly how I would do it here. It's deleting things that are no longer needed. So if we take a look, expense model, they have the pencil icon, right? Always review the code just to make sure that's exactly how you would do it too. This way, you can make sure that AI is doing the right thing. And it also updated how this repo does it. Like, remember we asked it to update the skill too. So it also updated the Next.js review skill. All right, so it's looking pretty good right now. We have actions, we have page. So if I go back and edit it, it works. And if I change this to 300, so it should be 100, and save expense, and boom, it works. So expense has been updated, so our application is looking very nice. All right, let's just say yes here. So edit expense works. Now it's just making sure that TypeScript is happy and it's testing and building the edit feature. Changes, which is phase 12. Perfect. So that's all for this specific application. Build plan has been successfully executed right now. As you saw, how we went through it step by step, the different files we created, the architecture we designed, the project overview, all these files were responsible for essentially connecting all the dots. So now if we go back to our application is looking very nice. It has authentication. As you can see, it had some loading states. We have edit feature, delete feature, adding expense, handling different currencies, and all of this was done in just a matter of minutes because of the way we have designed this application. So in the future, whenever you have to work on it something, make sure to build it. And that is Splitter AI. We build not only a solid application in not a matter of months, but literally less than a day. If you're following along,
You know how easy it is to build an application like this. So far, you have learned
how to architect like a senior engineer. Now, if you want to go deeper and learn exactly how I set up all the files that we talked about, such as these context files, skills, how I went about architecting the application, how we can direct the agent to build the application for us, switch between context files, create a plan, and so on, more in depth, then definitely check out my upcoming Agentic course.
in this course, we dive deeper into how I did everything. Not gonna hide anything, not gonna gatekeep any of the information. Everything is available for you.
So if you're interested, then sign up to the waitlist so that you can be the first one to know when it drops, because it will definitely have a lot of free goodies and so on too. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in learning more,
I have several videos on this channel.
I'll link them down below so you know exactly how to continue building with AI agents. Bye for now.